went by and the news had spread over the other villages and towns, an unknown spiritual snake girl heard the news about the prince who wanted to marry a perfect lady, a lady without a scar or mark on her skin. The snakes held a strong meeting to embark on this occasion to attract the prince to their kingdom. The snakes decided to change one of their own daughter to a very beautiful and dazzling princess full of smiles and beautiful skin tone. They organized themselves, transformed her, and went to the king. Long, long ago in the land of Ekukuu, there lived a prince who was so charming and handsome that all the maidens in the kingdom were attracted to him. His name was Prince Ebuka. His father was King Agokoli, a great, powerful, and fearful king. They lived harmoniously until one day his father fell seriously sick and felt it was almost time for him to join his ancestors. So he asked his son, Prince Ebuka, to get himself a wife, but he told his father he'll get married if only the woman he's going to spend the rest of his life with does not have any scar or mark on her skin. After he told his father all this, his father felt so helpless and gave him the go ahead to choose his own wife. So Prince Ibuka sent his guards to send the message across all of the villages and towns in the kingdom and neighboring villages, and he asked them to announce to the villagers that on the next 3 market days, all the beautiful maidens in the whole kingdom, without scares or marks, should attend the royal summon for the selection of a wife by the prince. The women in the villages and towns were so excited to hear such wonderful news from the palace. As this news reached the whole kingdom, no maiden cared about their looks and faults on their skin. They didn't care if they were short, tall, fat, slim, old albino, bleached skinned, acne faced, tribal marks, and physically challenged women all across the villages prepared for the occasion. They all trooped into King Agokoli Palace to see Prince Ebuka. He was standing behind the balcony of the palace when he saw the crowd from afar and was amazed to see the number of ladies trooping in. On the day of the royal gathering, there was good music from musical instruments playing for the ladies to dance to attract and be selected by Prince Ebuka. But he was disappointed because all of them failed to listen to his instructions announced by the gods. He complained bitterly and was on top of his voice, saying, if this lady didn't have hard palms, then the other has dark spots on her face or will have a lot of scars on their bodies. After the search was over, the prince left with anger and rage without choosing any maiden. For several days and weeks, trying so hard to find the perfect woman to marry, all was in vain. He was so eager to go and find a wife for himself, but he was stopped by the king, saying, my son, with the right time and place, you will find a lady who is beautiful for yourself. Don't go stressing yourself out. As the prince was winding around the king's palace, his beloved mom felt pity for him and asked him to place his head on her lap while she sang and caressed his head to stop him from overthinking about finding his perfect match. As days went by and the news had spread over the other villages and towns, an unknown spiritual snake girl heard the news about the prince who wanted to marry a perfect lady, a lady without a scar or mark on her skin. The snakes held a strong meeting to embark on this occasion to attract the prince to their kingdom. The snakes decided to change one of their own daughter to a very beautiful and dazzling princess full of smiles and beautiful skin tone. They organized themselves, transformed her, and went to the king's palace. Upon reaching the kingdom, people saw the beautiful princess and started to approach her as some were jealous. Others were amazed to see a beautiful and elegant lady coming to their town. From afar, the prince saw the dazzling beauty queen surrounded by many people admiring and complimenting her beauty. He quickly rushed out of the palace in a hurry to go and meet the princess. He was astonished to see a beautiful lady like her and wondered if she was sent from above or heavenly made for him. With a big smile and amazement on his face, he welcomed the princess into his father's place. He immediately held a grand feast to welcome the princess, and they enjoyed themselves with some palm wine and bushmeat. The prince told his father how happy he was to see a beautiful and charming young lady like her without a scare who existed. For the first time in a long time, the king was happy to see his son, so happy and full of joy. They made merry throughout the night, and when dinner was over, the prince and princess took a stroll around the palace so they could know each other better. They were walking round, holding hands, smiling at each other, sharing jokes, and singing their favorite song to each other. As days went by, they never heard anything from the princess family side because they were all overwhelmed. They didn't think of the princess family. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months, but she kept on giving so many excuses and always trying to avoid the question from the prince and his family. But they didn't bother much or think deep into the issue and just carried on with their love life. Then one beautiful morning, the princess requested to take a walk with Prince Ebuka to the market square so that he would show her the beautiful and wonderful things in the town. They had so much fun and meeting new people. Everyone at the village square gathered around to see the new to be couples. As the love grew more and more between the two lovebirds, she became so comfortable around him and started asking questions about his hunting skills and what they normally do whenever he goes hunting. To the prince, he only felt his wife to be was being concerned, but rather she had her own intentions towards the prince. The prince also wanted to know more about his wife to be, but she insisted that if he is willing to tell her about his hunting skills, she will take him to meet her parents. So he asked her to go ahead with her questions and all that she needs to know. My prince, when you go hunting and you meet a dangerous animal approaching you, how will you save yourself? And the prince answered, I have a spiritual gun that was given to me by my great grandfather. I will throw it up to the sky and sit on it high above the ground, such a way that the wild animal cannot get to me. Oh, really? That's really impressive, said the princess. And if the wild animal jumps so high up to you, then what will happen? The prince also replied, saying, the next thing I'll do is turn to grasses around in order to confuse the wild animal. As he was saying all these things to the princess, the king was behind the balcony listening to their conversation. When this was happening, the princess asked again, my prince, what if the wild animal tries to scatter and step on the grasses and ends everything? What will you do? Oh my goodness, that's even way simple. I'll simply turn to a strong wind and blow everything around me. Prince Ebuka said all this with full pride. While the princess took note of everything the prince was saying, the king also sat patiently waiting to hear all what his son will reveal to his wife to be. With a tap on the prince's shoulders and a seductive look and voice, while she asked her final question, she asked, my prince, what if the wild animal is so strong to overcome the strong wind? What will be your next alternative? The prince answered, my princess, I will simply turn into a PE. As he was about to complete that sentence, he heard a loud voice stopping him from saying anything to the princess. The king rebuked and forbid him from saying anything. Out of fear, they both stood up and entered the palace. A week passed by, and the prince requested to go and see the princess family. They made preparations with the guards and royal servants to go and see them off. When all was said and done, they goodbye the king and the royal palace and traveled to see the family of the snake princess. On their way, she was still curious to know everything about the royal family and what they had. As they moved farther from the palace, she asked the prince if he knew the current town they were in, and he told the princess that all those places belonged to his father, which would be given to him if he passed away. As they moved deeper into the forest, the prince became bothered and timid, so he asked if they haven't gotten to their destination. But the princess answered no. She asked Prince Ebuka to let the guards and servants to stay at the end of the forest, while the prince conveyed her inside the forest. He trusted her so much, and he asked his people to stay behind as he moved away and strolled with the princess. But all of a sudden, the princess turned into a wild, angry snake and wanted to attack the prince. With his hunting skills, he brought out his gun, threw it up to the sky, and sat on it. He was fully prepared for anything but had no bad intentions towards the princess. The wild snake jumped so high to reach the prince, but it turned into grasses to confuse the snake. But she had all this figured out because of their previous conversation. The prince turned into a strong and mighty wind to destroy everything around. But as strong as the wild snake was, it was able to scatter the strong wind the prince created. As the prince ran out of options, and he, remembering his father, once rebuked him from spilling the beans, the great secret the family had held on for years. With his last option, he turned into a tiny pin and entered into the wild snake's tail. But this time around, the princess didn't know what the prince had turned into. She turned round and round, trying to figure out what the prince wanted to say when he said P. So she kept saying P, P. What is P? With a loud and aggressive voice, she wiggled her tail so strongly that her tail hit a tree and the pin fell very far away into a different town. While all this was happening, the guards and servants had no idea of what was going. It happened that a hunter found the prince laying helplessly and unconscious on the ground at the edge of forest, which was close to his town, and helped him out. He carried the prince on his shoulders and sent him to his house and treated him with healing leaves. When Prince Ebuka became conscious and well, he told the hunter who he was and he sent him to the royal palace. And a message was sent to the guards and servants who were left behind to come home, but they were scattered around the forest in search of the prince. With opened arms, his father welcomed him and helped him clean up his injured body. He told his father everything that happened, and his father said to him, "My son, that was the main reason why I stopped you from revealing the family's greatest secrets. You would have been dead by now." And he advised him to be content with everything around him and not to discriminate. With a big smile on his face, he hugged and thanked his father. The moral lesson of this story is that true beauty lies not in physical perfection, but in inner qualities such as kindness, humility, and acceptance. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more cultural tales from the heart of Africa.